Right, back on with the action, episode 10, Fans Pulse Lap 3, entitled Rider Psychology, which is quite a deep and meaningful, profound-sounding discussion topic, right? So gents, here's what I had in mind for this discussion topic. So I'm thinking that riders play tricks on other riders, and mind games, right? So I don't know. Maybe you're last to the tapes, or you'll pull back from the tapes at the last second, whatever it might be, to try and put off an opponent, or get inside their head, or whatever it might be, to out-psych other riders. But I do know that Speedway riders, we all know Speedway riders are complicated creatures, right? So the psychology side of it might manifest in other ways. So rider psychology, over to you, Big Mac. I'm going to bring you in first. What does that conjure up in your mind, Stuart?
Well, I mean, one thing that I was always quite a superstitious person when I was racing. I had to do things in twos, whether that was, going to the toilet, whether it was walking around a corner. I always had this psychological thing that I had to do things in twos. Even when I went out onto the track and I went and dug my line to go at the start, I'd get back round again. I don't know whether I got it from Mark Courtney, because Mark Courtney used to be a nightmare, because he would sit like that,
yes,
and he would do that, and then I would end up doing it twice, because it was superstitious. Everything was done twice, or 4 or 6. So the amount of people that used to see me going for a wee at the back of the pits and then going back again, and they used to think, what's going on with him? But there was a couple of riders that I used to have quite I wouldn't say I had my eye on, but I would always try and noise up Peter Carr and Kenny McKenna. Kenny McKenna was just Scotland's number one. Derek, I wanted to beat the king of the castle. And Peter Carr was so good. Now, I'm going to mention a word, I don't know if it's true or not, but if he didn't cheat going out the starts, I don't know what he did, because Peter Carr out of the starts was phenomenal. And if you got in front, you weren't passing him. Nobody was passing that 650, sorry, that bike. And I used to always go up to the start, and I'd wait till Peter was there, and I'd go up and dig a bit of a track, but I'd try and sort of near him a wee bit to the left the odd time. And he knew what I was doing, but at most times in my career, I wasn't the same level as Peter Carr, so I would do what I could to noise him up. And do you know what? A couple of times it worked, because I did beat him, which was rare. But I loved winding Kenny McKenna up. I did. I used to wind Kenny up like there was no tomorrow.
How did you achieve that, Stuart? Go on, tell us.
Sitting at the starting tapes, I'd intentionally go across the line, so that I would be getting told to move. Mm-hmm. If I was coming in after a race and, Kenny was I would be a wee bit awkward with Kenny. I love Kenny. I respect him. He's an amazing guy. But did I want to beat him? Absolutely. And would I try little tricks in the boot? Absolutely. Even when getting pushed off, I'd try and put my elbow on him, because Kenny wasn't aggressive. He was a hard rider, but he wasn't, like your typical Scotsman, let's go for it. But I like to wind him up, and I could sit here all night and talk about it. James Greaves, one of my best friends in Speedway. God, if I could have knocked him off more times, I would have. He done it to me, we done it to him. We had such a good rivalry, and I think over the years that grew as riders as well, and it made it for great watching for the fans. And I think over the years, I think some of the things we used to get up to was just unbelievable. I mean, I'm not going to mention too many things, but some of the riders that out there, excluding these two guys, could tell you some real good stories. And there was a lot of things that we used to do.
It's the stories that we're fascinated by, Stuart. Listen, that's a fascinating insight into the world, the mysterious mind of Stuart McDonald, and how he used to wind up Peter Carr and Kenny McKenna in particular. Try
it. It never worked most of the time.
Never worked most times, yeah.
They were too good, but the odd time it did.
Robbo, I'm going to bring you in. Give us an insight into the mysterious workings of Stuart Robson's Speedway brain.
Yeah. I didn't really have any superstitions or sort of psychological to try and put people up. I never did anything, just to get out and do my own thing. Maybe that's what I did wrong. That's curious. But it's not something I don't know. I just used to go get on with it. If I was first in the start, and I was first. If I was last, I was last. It didn't really make a difference for me. I mean, I know. I think I've heard of stories from the years gone by where riders give the guy next to them a bit of a kick or something on the start line, but this probably since the 70s or 80s, that kind of thing happened. I wouldn't be able to do that because I put myself up more than the other person. So it just wouldn't work for me. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have anything like that.
You didn't partake in any of the mind games. Thinking back though, Stuart, can you think of someone who used to influence you in a negative way?
Not so much that, but I had bogey riders. There was certain riders that I never seemed to be able to beat. And no matter what I did, they all beat me. But not really, nothing. People didn't used to put me off. They used to get out there and get on with it. I tried to focus on what I was doing.
Yeah.
And be confident in my own ability to beat everybody, really.
And Andy, what about yourself, Andy? You know the sort of thing that I'm alluding to, because I'm fairly. I need you guys to kind of validate this, but maybe it's a bit of a theory on my part that riders get up to these sort of tricks on track and try and put other riders off.
Yeah, I used to like to be the first one on the track. In the race, first one out onto the track, I'd have a bit of a dig around at the start and see where I'm going from, and then I would be pulling back. I'd probably come to the tapes again, and then when the guys next to me on the inside, so if I was off 2, for example, the guy on the inside and the guy on the outside, I'd probably go up close to it, and I would spin the bike around just behind them. And it just sort of used to throw a few of the stones onto where they've just dug out a little bit, so that would annoy them a bit and turn back round. But yeah, and then I would always like to be the last one up, because I don't think it made any difference at all, but it just made me feel better going to the start line, if you like, that I felt that I had a bit of an advantage. But yeah, I mean, once the starts are gone, you're away. But staying on for 4 laps was always my issue then.
I hear you. That was the old Mark Courtney technique, right? Stuart McDonald, you mentioned it. Exactly. I can visualise him doing it right now. And I'm sure he used to have a fiddle about with something on his neck. I don't know what that was, but yeah.
He never wore a neck. He never wore a collar. If you actually look at Mark, he never wore one of the neck chiefs.
Right.
It was always like. And listen, that was Mark Courtney for you, but what a rider, for all his little movements in his head. Wow, that guy could race, he could.
Yeah. I'm wondering, back in the day before, when you were allowed to nudge tapes or charge tapes and things like that, I wonder if maybe in that era there was more of these sort of mind games that went on, movement at the tapes and things like that.
I think there was a lot of. I mean, I know a couple of riders years ago that used to kid on at the start. Rob Grant was a great one at it, and Rob will remember this at Berrington Luff. Rob Grant would sit. He was that big a guy. He would sit at the start and move the bike himself. Never mind the clutch. He'd move the bike and people would jump.
Right.
And if Rob didn't get you excluded that way, Rob ended up going through you. So either way, you were probably better to get excluded at the tapes.
What about during a race then, right? So Ronnie Corey mentioned a few episodes ago, he talked about riders could do things on the track, like they would have a little nibble at your back wheel and kind of set you straight. I remember Ronnie saying, well, the things like that during a race, tactics are things that riders did during a race that would put you off, give them an advantage over you.
I mean, apart from the Grand Prix, I think was it 95, 96 when Thomas Golob pushes Henke out of the way. Do you remember that?
I do.
Going down the straight.
Yeah.
If any speedway rider, in my eyes, has got the ability to take their hands off the bike whilst they're racing and do something to another rider, then wow, because you had both hands focused on that bike. I never get into any sort of shenanigans on the track. You got the odd. There was actually one experience that I had that was with Roman Matusek at Wolverhampton, and all he did was just point the bike towards me or James Greaves, and he just tried to go through us every time. He was so erratic on a bike, Roman, and one thing he didn't want to do was argue him after the meeting. Honestly, Roman ran towards myself and James, and I think it was Chris Adams at the time, with a hammer in the middle of the meeting, because we got him knocked. He knocked one of us off. He got excluded, and then James started the fisticuffs a little bit, like James did, because he liked the boxing. and then before you know it, Matisek's got a hammer. You know, I'm thinking, what the but he was one rider that on a track, he would go through anybody, and that was the only time that I really seen it, you know, when that sort of thing.
Well, given what you said earlier, Stuart, if you argued with Roman Matisek, you'd have to do it twice, at least. What about Stuart? I can remember, I remember it was a Scotland-England international at Powder Hall, and possibly just before your time, I'm not sure, but I remember Ivan Blacker patting Steve Lawson on the back, going along the straight to tell him to tell him that he was there. His teammate was beside him. Slow down, Steve. I'm with you. And that took a bit of doing, right, to do that halfway down the straight.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the speedway control nowadays is phenomenal. You know, the guys will tell you yourself. You've got that many revs through the bike. You know, I wouldn't dream about taking my hand off the bike when I was racing during the meeting. I wouldn't, because you've been too busy thinking, you know. But when you've got that level of these guys, you know, like I say, the Thomas Golob, Henka one sticks out in my head. You know, he pushes them away, like proper pushes them away. And you know, to have that ability and to still race, you know, it was never my thing, never.
Well, listen, maybe rider psychology isn't the thing that I thought it was. I thought there was a lot more went on behind the scenes in the pit bays or whatever it might be, or certainly around the starting grid, that riders deployed little tactics, did little things just to try and get inside other riders' heads or let them know that they're there, or whatever it might be. But I'm a bit disappointed, if I'm honest. Nigel Crabtree, we'll ask you this question next week, see if you can remember anything. But listen, 360 speeders, if you know different, if you are a former rider, if you have the inside knowledge on one or two particular riders and some of the tactics that they employed to put off their opponents, we would love to hear from you. So please take a couple of minutes and post a comment. Right, picking up some more of your messages. Thanks again to everyone who took time and effort to submit your comments, your questions. Feel free to do that from next week onwards, everyone. If you haven't done so yet, or you have done so, there's no restriction in the number of times you can contact 360 Speedway. Just pick up your preferred method of contacting us. You'll see all of the options circulating the screen in terms of the social media platforms, email, and of course that dedicated WhatsApp number. Right, on with the action, on with the messages. Jill Jai from Norfolk. Hi Jill. The stars are now beginning to fire. We can yet salvage something from 2025. A well-timed playoff challenge would be cool, says Jill. Absolutely. Yes, you know, multiple times over the previous 9 episodes, I have mentioned that I'm quite intrigued by the Stars team and their makeup. Chris Harris has been at reserve, now he's number 1. Jan Kvech has been number 1, now he's at reserve. They've got some solid, proven performers in that side. Nikolai Clint, Richard Lawson, to name but 2 of them. Ben Cook, I would imagine, is getting closer and closer to being able to make a return to British Speedway. Yes, the stars were shining, certainly on Monday night, Jill. And yeah, you know, there are only 7 teams in the Premiership. Only 4th place would be enough to get you into those playoffs. And as you have said, a well-timed run, and anything can happen. So good luck to you, Jill. Hang in there, enjoy the ride, and good luck to the stars. Cameron Jai from Glasgow. Far flung Glasgow. Cameron Jai says, genuinely sorry to see Ashton dropped from the side. Hope he can rediscover the scoring we all know he's capable of. Nigel looks a very good prospect though. Yeah, it's been a big week, big news week up in Glasgow, as the Tigers have announced that the departure of Ashton Bowden from the Glasgow side. He's also, of course, parted company with Kings Lynn in the Premiership. Ashton's form this season has been little reminiscent of the Ashton Bowden that we've all seen in the past. We know the lad has got talent. We know what he's capable of. We know he is a talent on a speedway bike. For whatever reason, and you need Ashton to tell us. But for whatever reason, he just doesn't look the same rider, and he hasn't at all looked like the same rider in 2025. Looks like he would benefit from taking some time out from the sport, which is enforced or otherwise is currently what he has. So best wishes certainly to Ashton, which it was your point, Cameron. And Glasgow have moved into the transfer market, and they've brought into British Speedway an exciting young talent, Vlad Nigel, a young Danish rider, 18 years of age. He just missed qualification from the rain-aborted under-20 Speedway Grand Prix 2 qualifying round at Ashfield just a few weeks ago, and he showed enough on that night on a rain-soaked track to catch some attention, and clearly some conversations have taken place, and the Glasgow management team have brought Vlad into British Speedway. He'll make his debut at Ashfield in the sunshine this Friday night against the Plymouth Gladiators. So good luck to Vlad, and to your point, Cameron, good luck to Ashton. Hope we see him back in the sport and looking more like himself in the coming weeks and months. Alan M from Oxford writes, interesting to hear 360 suggest the championship is I think the best level in British Speedway. I totally agree and hope this is how the sport moves forward next year. So Alan M, assuming you are an Oxford fan, you perhaps a better place than most. You see all three available levels of Team Speedway at Cowley, Premiership, Championship and the National Development level. And interesting, Alan, that you have picked up on and appear to be agreeing with the sentiment in that Carol Johnson expressed last week, that the Championship offers the best product within British Speedway. If you think about the number of riders who double up into the Premiership, then there are lots of riders who do well at Premiership level and obviously do well at Championship level. And given the financial implications of operating at Championship level, that appears to be the sweet spot, certainly in Carol Johnson's view. So interesting to see whether over the winter months, whether the strategy within British Speedway leans in that direction or not. Thanks for taking time to contact us, Alan. And possibly finally, I think, for this week, Kat has been in touch. Kat, I don't know which part of the country you're in, but you contacted us on WhatsApp. Thank you. Recently arranged for 10 work colleagues to have a night out at Speedway. Everyone loved it and how friendly everyone was. We even had selfies with the riders, which is one of the cool things about Speedway, right? You can't go to a football match or rugby match and necessarily manage to do that sort of thing. But Kat, do get in touch. Let us know which part of the country, which track you took your 10 colleagues along to, and thank you for doing so. Credit to you for doing that, for persuading them to go along. And it's beautiful to hear that they all enjoyed it, and hopefully that means, Kat, that they're going to return with you very, very soon. But that's all your messages for episode 10. Thanks again for getting in touch. If you haven't done so already, or you would like to do so again, don't hesitate. Just make it happen.